Entering my grandfather's abandoned house in the middle of the night was probably the worst decision I ever made in my life. It wasn't mere childish curiosity. It was something deeper, a strange pull drawing me toward that place the way a magnet draws iron. Throughout my childhood, I heard whispers about the old house in the village of Wadi El Sukun, where my grandfather had lived before disappearing under mysterious circumstances 40 years ago. My father refused to talk about it, and his eyes revealed a buried terror whenever I asked. But tonight, after my father died and left me a strange brass key along with a note that read, "Beware the place where the shadow sleeps," I decided to go. The old car rattled along the dirt road leading into the valley. The moon was a full disk, pouring its pale light over the twisted trees that seemed to stretch toward the car as if trying to grab it. There was no sound but the rustling of dry leaves and the engine's growl. When I arrived, the car stopped in front of the rusted iron gate. The house stood as a black mass against the night sky, its windows like empty eyes staring at me. I opened the gate, its rusty joints screaming. Walking along the uneven stone path felt like moving through a dream. The air was cold and sticky as if the place were wrapped in an invisible membrane. I reached the massive wooden door. The brass key fit the lock disturbingly well, as if it had been made for it. A loud click echoed in the silent night, and the door creaked open slowly with a long, mournful groan. The smell of mold, dirt, and rotting wood greeted me. I shone my flashlight inside. The main hall was vast and deserted, its furniture covered with white sheets like seated ghosts waiting in silence. On the wall hung family photographs, but the faces of everyone in them were scratched out or blackened, except for one, a picture of my grandfather, Salam Rashid, whose eyes seemed to follow me wherever I moved. I decided to start with the ground floor, the living room, the kitchen, the library. Everything looked exactly as it had been left decades ago. In the library, I found my grandfather's journals, leather-bound, their yellowed pages brittle. I opened one to a page that read, "Tonight, I heard the whisper coming from the western wall. It knows that I hear it. It wants me to open the path." A faint scratching sound made me lift my head. It came from behind the bookshelf. I approached slowly, my hands shaking. I moved a stack of old books and found a small wooden door behind them, no more than a meter high, secured with a small rusty lock. Without hesitation, I used the brass key. It opened. Behind the door was a narrow stone staircase leading downward. The air was colder and heavier here, the smell of damp earth and rust filling my mouth and nose. I descended step by step, the walls wet and covered in moss. At the bottom was a low-ceilinged cellar filled with strange things, rusted iron tools of unfamiliar shapes, shelves lined with glass jars containing dark liquids with indistinct objects floating inside. And on the walls, strange chalk drawings, complex, interlocking geometric shapes that made the eyes spin. In the center of the cellar stood a stone table. On it lay a massive book bound in some kind of skin, and before it, a round stone bowl etched with symbols. I approached. The book was open to a page depicting a 7-pointed star with an eye-like symbol at its center. Beneath it, in my grandfather's handwriting, the final invocation. "The path will open at the full moon on the night of silence. Blood is the key, but the price is possibility." That was when I heard the whisper for the first time. It came from nowhere specific, out of the walls, the ground, the air itself. A low, multi-tone sound, as if many voices were speaking a non-human language at once. I couldn't understand the words, but the hunger and anticipation in the tone were unmistakable. The light in my hand wavered, and I nearly dropped the book. I ran back toward the stairs, but the small wooden door above slammed shut violently. I heard the latch slide into place. I was trapped. The whisper grew louder, turning into rapid, angry murmurs. I slammed my body against the door, but it wouldn't budge. Desperate, I looked around the cellar and noticed something I hadn't seen before. In the darkest corner, there was another low door, secured with a heavy iron bolt. I backed toward it, the whisper following me like cold sound waves brushing my skin. With effort, I slid the bolt and burst through. I found myself in a long, low tunnel built of old red brick. The air was nearly devoid of oxygen, the smell of decay everywhere. I had to stoop to walk. The tunnel stretched straight ahead, its end lost in the wavering beam of my flashlight. Walking through it felt like entering the belly of a sleeping beast. After minutes of exhausting movement, the tunnel widened slightly, and I began to hear a new sound, the slow, steady dripping of water, like the heartbeat of a giant. Then suddenly, the tunnel opened into a wider space. Situ. It was a circular chamber with a high ceiling beyond the reach of my light. In the center lay a pool of still black water. The dripping came from a domed ceiling above it, each drop sending ripples across the dark surface. Around the pool, concentric circles were drawn on the floor with a glossy black substance like tar. And at the edge of the pool sat a man. His back was to me, seated on an old wooden chair, wearing a worn coat. A mad spark of hope flared in me. Perhaps it was my grandfather. Perhaps he had been alive all these years, trapped here. "Grandfather?" I called, my voice trembling. He didn't move. I stepped closer. The air was thick with moisture and despair. When I was 2 meters away, he slowly turned. His face resembled my grandfather's from the photograph, but it was waxy pale, his eyes wide and completely black. No whites, no life. He opened his mouth, but the voice that emerged was not his. It was the whisper itself, that multi-toned alien sound. "You, the air, the blood." "You answered." I stumbled back. "Who are you? What did you do to my grandfather?" The dead lips twisted into something like a smile. "Your grandfather is me, and I am more. He opened the path, and now it is your turn to complete the calling." He raised his slow hand and pointed toward the pool. I looked at the water. At first I saw nothing. Then images began forming on the black surface. My grandfather as a young man, standing in this very chamber, reading from the great book, offering something on the stone table. Others followed, men and women from different eras, all performing the same act. Then I saw my father, young, standing at the house gate, terror on his face as he fled, leaving the brass key buried in the garden. "What is this? What do you want?" I screamed. "The gate sleeps beneath water, beneath stone, beneath bones," the voice said. "The calling needs the blood of the lineage, your blood, to open it fully, to summon what waits in the dark." Understanding struck me like ice. My grandfather wasn't a victim. He had been a guardian or sorcerer trying to open the gate and summon what lay beyond. My father had known and tried to protect me, and this thing before me was not my grandfather. But what remained after that power consumed him. "I won't do anything," I said. "Let me out." The smile widened. "No escape. The night is not over. The moon watches. Either you open the gate, or you become the fuel that keeps it closed, as your father did." My father? I looked again at the pool as the water receded, revealing not stone or earth, but neatly arranged human bones. At the center lay 3 more recent skeletons, scraps of modern clothing still clinging to them. One wore my father's ring. Terror froze my blood. "Your choice," the voice whispered. There was another door on the far side of the chamber. I ran for it. Behind me I heard the chair topple and heavy, uneven footsteps giving chase, but slow, labored. Beyond the door was a maze of narrow passages, their earthen walls tangled with roots. I ran blindly, the walls seeming to breathe, the whisper surrounding me. "Do not flee. Your fate is sealed." At last I burst into an open courtyard beneath the moon. In the center stood an old well. Around it were figures, ghosts, translucent human shapes and clothing from different eras, faces etched with endless pain. Behind me, the thing that was my grandfather emerged. I approached the well. From its depths came not hunger or evil, but profound sorrow. At the bottom, something glinted, the brass key. "The well is the weakest link," a female ghost whispered. "Break the circle. Free us." The ghosts turned on the dark body. When the woman touched its forehead, it screamed as it disintegrated, and a black, smoky mass fled into the well. Silence followed. The ghosts faded, one by one. Before vanishing, the woman gestured to the well, then to my heart. I knew what I had to do. I jumped. At the bottom lay a glowing black stone doorway, and beside it my grandfather's true remains, a ritual knife in his hand and a final note. I was wrong. I sealed it here with me. Do not open it. Destroy the frame. The voice pleaded, promised power and immortality. I ignored it and drove the knife into the stone eye at the center. The doorway collapsed into white dust. The darkness screamed, then vanished. I climbed out with the help of unseen hands. Dawn broke. The house was just a house again. But the whisper still lives, faint, distant in my blood. The brass key is with me. Now I am the guardian. And you, reader, may be one of us. Beware.